do a good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, depending if you're in France or in the United States. Today, we have a pleasure to hear the success story of Charger with JohnRTurner and DaveAnderson that's gonna go through their presentation. We have a series of panels during our two-day event, and we're very pleased to again to have Charger this morning. So, Gian, without further ado, I'm going to let you explain, what is Charger Group, what do you do, and we'll be happy to take questions at the end. So I advise our audience to put question in the chat, and we will review it at the end. Gian, it's yours.
Perfect. So I'm JohnRTurner. I'm the general manager for Novacel Performance Coatings, a company of Chargeurs. We also have with us DaveAnderson. So I know Dave's going to kick us off here to start. So Dave, you want to introduce yourself?
Absolutely. Good morning, everyone. I'm DaveAnderson. I'm the managing director for Chargeurs Protective Films. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. I joined the company in 2006, and I'm excited to have the opportunity to share a little bit about our company and our activities in Ohio and the U.S. So in the interest of trying to keep things moving, Cedric, I'm just going to go ahead and get started. Our company is a French-owned company. I think many of you probably are familiar with it already. The company was founded in 1872, so it's about 150 years old. Our turnover in 2020 was 820 million euros. One of the things that we really pride ourselves on is innovation. We generally are creating approximately 100 patents a year, and around the world we have about 2,200 employees. So within Chargeurs, there are several different operating units. I'll take a moment to describe each of them, but then we'll get into more detail around the part of the company that JR and I are part of. So Chargeurs Protective Films is the largest business unit of Chargeurs. We'll spend quite a bit of time talking about that, so I'm not going to spend any more time on it right now. Fashion Technologies is a division that manufactures thermobonded fabrics that are used in the creation of garments. So if you take your tie or your collar and kind of rub it together between your fingers, you'll notice that there's fabric inside that. Those products are designed to provide shape and form to the garments. We are the world's largest supplier into that market. Another entity of the company is Chargeurs Luxury Materials. And to put that in the simplest context, it is related to wool. We are engaged in the harvesting of wool around the world and help transform the wool fibers into, obviously into the apparel industry. One of the things that we're proud of is in 2017, we initiated a program whereby we were beginning to provide traceability of the wool to make sure that it was being harvested in a manner that was both sustainable and proper, and it also helped us to protect the integrity of the quality of the materials. A recent new addition to the company is Chargeurs Museum Solutions. There are two elements of that, an entity called Senfa and an entity called Leach. Basically, we are within Senfa, we have the ability to manufacture technical textiles, and in Leach, we specialize in the manufacture of specialized solutions for visual communications. So most often, very regularly, they're used to illustrate things in museums. And then Chargeurs Healthcare Solutions. I think JR is going to speak to this quite a bit, but it was a new entity that we created during the onset of the pandemic in 2020. So it's a little bit of a quick overview of the overall corporation. JR, if you want to move on. So within the Chargeurs Protective Films, the key brand that we represent is called Novacel. We manufacture temporary surface protection films. We are the largest supplier of those products around the globe. Those products are used during the fabrication of metals, plastics, automobiles, and they are designed to temporarily protect the surfaces, either during the fabrication of the parts or during the transportation of those finished materials and finished products out into the end use sites around the world. We acquired one of our competitors in 2016 in the United States called Main Tape. They are located in New Jersey, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. Another component of the Chargeurs protective films is our technical products. There are two business entities that operate within that, a company called Boston Tapes that operates out of Italy near Naples, and Novacel Performance Coatings that JR is serving as the general manager of. And he will spend a little bit of time talking about that in a couple of moments. In 2017, we made a decision to enter into kind of a new area for our company. Our products generally require some pretty sophisticated processing at our customers. And one of the things that we had noticed over the years is that many of our customers might not have their equipment properly configured to best utilize the products that we had designed and manufactured. So we made a decision that we were going to enter into the specialty machines business. The original intent, of course, was to figure out a way to provide a total solution to the marketplace, whereby our products could be our surface protection products could be optimally used the way that we intended them to be designed. But in addition to that, the objective is that we would optimize our customers' ability to use those materials, thereby making them more efficient and hopefully more profitable. Okay. So a little bit about some of the key factors behind Novacel. Around the world, we have about 700 employees. Each year, approximately a quarter of our sales are generated with products that have been developed and introduced within the course of the last 2 years. In 2020, our total turnover for Novacel was 270 million euros, and we have over 3,000 customers around the world, okay, which is quite interesting. Go ahead, JR. I will slow down a little bit. I'm trying to make sure that we leave time for questions and that sort of thing, Cedric. So if I'm moving too quickly, please feel free to let me know. All right?
You're good. You're perfect.
Okay. All right. So this provides you a little bit of an idea around how Novacel is structured around the world. As I mentioned earlier, we are the world's largest participant in the surface protection market. We have offices, sales offices, and service centers located around the world. You note that we have 27 employees in Asia. There's over 500 employees in Europe with 4 production sites. And in the United States, we have 3 production units and 2 service centers and branch offices with a total of about 168 employees. So our definition of a service center, so our production units have the equipment that is necessary to apply adhesive to film and paper products. That is the foundation of our products. We take a raw film and we will coat a pressure sensitive adhesive on it, and then we will wind it into rolls. When we create those rolls, they are log rolls, and then those log rolls can be custom slit to the individual customer's length and width. And that's the activity that we do in the service centers in the United States, okay, or around the world, actually. In the US, we have a manufacturing facility in Troy, Ohio, which is north of Dayton. That's the facility that JR works from. We purchased a competitor, I think I mentioned already, in Cranberry, New Jersey. It's about an hour from Newark, if I'm not mistaken. And then we have a service center located in Sturbridge, Massachusetts. That's about an hour and a half from Boston. and we opened a new service center in Monterrey, Mexico in 2018. So we generate all of the activity that we're doing within Canada, the United States, and Mexico in the sites that I just referenced. Okay. So JR and I were looking at this slide, and I'll be honest with you. The slide was generated by our marketing team in Europe, and I was a little proud of the fact that the tagline that is on here, "You make it perfect, and we keep it that way," that was originated in our activities in the U.S. quite a few years ago. But the foundation behind that is that our customers put a lot of time and energy and expertise into making a perfectly smooth, refrigerator, a perfectly smooth automobile, or the carpeting that is in a new car that you purchase. Our films help them to do the processing that is necessary to manufacture their products, and then to transport it out into the marketplace and keep it in that pristine condition that they had worked on so hard to manufacture. So one of the things that we really pride ourselves on is I know that if you think about it only in terms of like a tape, I think it may be easy to oversimplify what we do within our business. We have in excess of 450 different products, dozens of different adhesives, literally hundreds of different films or papers that we use to manufacture our products. And in each of those cases, we've developed those products. Obviously, it would be simplest for us to manufacture one product and have it work for every application, but that's not how it works. The way that it works is the processes that our customers use, the differences between, let's say, stainless steel and acrylic plastic sheet are pretty significant. And so we have to engineer our products to meet the demands of the different surfaces and our customers' different processes. So one of the things that we provide to our customers as a service is we have a fully capable lab in our headquarters in Deville, France, as well as a fully capable laboratory in our Cranberry, New Jersey facility, the main tape facility. We will request the customers to provide us with samples of their materials. We will then bring them into our laboratory, and we will conduct a variety of tests to determine which is the best of our products to suit their different application needs. And we always have a bit of a dilemma. We have to pay not only attention to what our direct customer needs that product to do in the way of processing, but we also have to pay close attention to what is going to be expected at the end use level. So nothing would be worse than for you to buy a washer or a dryer and get it home and try to peel the protective film off of it and it not come off. So we have to pay attention to not only the processing for our customers, but how it's going to behave when it gets to its final end place. In one of these examples, you can see in the bottom corner of the pictures, you'll notice the blue film, okay? In that film is intended to be removed, but what purpose it serves is our customer will polish the metal while they are in the process of constructing that particular oven door. Once they have polished it and they have the right visual characteristics to it, they will place our film over it so that when that unit is being transported to a store and ultimately to installation in the home, nothing is going to be able to scratch it or prevent it from getting dirty during transportation. Okay. So one of the things that has really been interesting for us, I've been in the adhesive coating industry for over 40 years. And one of the things that is quite unique around Novacel is that we are participants in a very wide range of different marketplaces and market applications. We're involved on everything from the manufacture of appliances, building exteriors, within the automotive and aeronautics industry, as well as the fabrication of industrial parts. So in the far left, you can see examples of tanks that are that have been prepared. Our films are used to protect the steel during the fabrication process, such that they do not become scratched or damaged before the installation of the tank. In the case of building exteriors, if you look at a large hospital or a stadium, very often you're going to see very beautiful panels that decorate the outside of those locations. We sell to all of the major manufacturers of those composite panels in the United States, and our products remain on those panels until they are installed at the construction sites. Okay. So I mentioned a few moments ago, and it bears repeating, that one of the things that we take great pride in, and one of the things that we figure is a key value that we bring into the marketplace, is that we're extremely innovative. We are constantly looking for opportunities to take the technologies that we have, either related to our adhesives or to our films, or just simply the knowledge that we have around how our products work, to create new solutions in the marketplace. One of the things that we jumped on pretty quickly in 2020 was to introduce films that had antimicrobial agents integrated into the film. And the intent of that, of course, was to help prevent the spread of the pandemic situation. There was chemicals that were integrated into those films, whereby when they were applied on a surface, oh, for crying out loud. I'm so sorry. While those films were applied to the surfaces, it prevented them from contracting or incubating bacteria or germs that may have been present. We put a considerable amount of effort over the course of the last couple of years to begin trying to utilize create recyclable films, or try to create films that offer the same protection characteristics as a standard polyethylene film, but using recycled components or plant-based materials to create those films. So it is an area that we put a lot of research into, a lot of energy into it. To be candid with you, it is catching on a little bit more quickly in Europe than it has within the United States. I think in general, I'm ashamed to say, I think the European market is a little bit more environmentally conscious than it has been historically in the United States. But we are starting to see some traction develop with some of our key customers here in the United States. The Boston Tapes arena is that unit manufactures specialty splicing tapes, repulpable tapes, used, and they can be used as a material that our customers use when they're beginning to wind a roll of steel or wind a roll of painted metal that will be transported down into their manufacturing process for further consideration. And in 2020, we introduced in Europe and in Asia the first effort that we have taken to sell our products through the internet. We are looking at doing that in the United States. The market conditions and the market uses over here are just a little, well, not the uses, but the distribution channels in the United States are a little bit different than they are in Europe and in Asia. So we're trying to determine the best way to pursue an online portal for our business here in the U.S. JR?
All right. Thank you, Dave.
Mm-hmm.
As Dave mentioned prior, corporate social responsibility is a huge part of not only Chargeurs Protective Films, but Chargeurs as a group as a whole. And within CPF, we've made a distinct investment and strategic stance that we're going to operate with social responsibility and sustainability in mind and how we do business, not only with the intent of growing the business, but just considering the approach of how we grow the business is just as important as the result. So I'll kind of walk through some key things that we've been involved in, that we've implemented within our business to help push us in that right direction and to fulfill some of our goals from a CSR perspective. So one of the big things that we've done at an overall group level within Chargeurs is we're actually part of the United Nations Global Compact. We signed that in 2017, and there's strict requirements for companies to be a part of that program. And really, it's a strong commitment that we're going to lead globally with sustainability at the forefront of our business. That we're going to hold ourselves to high ethical standards in the way we conduct our workforce within our supply chains that we operate, but also the way we conduct our production and our manufacturing activities to not impact the environment. So really a high standard in the way we operate. So we're very proud of being a part of that and implementing that and living up to those standards across the group. The second piece is reach. So again, this is to ensure that our products aren't harmful to humans, but also the environment. So we make sure that all of our products are compliant there, and that we've got any hazardous chemicals that are on banned substance lists. We don't use those obviously in our manufacturing processes, but we ensure that our suppliers are compliant as well, that we have a clean supply chain from that standpoint. Another part when it comes to our quality systems, our environmental and health and safety systems. Majority of our facilities are ISO certified, so we make sure that we've got the right quality systems in place, not only to protect obviously our production and our products for our customers, but also the safety and environmental and health and safety aspects of our business as well. And then lastly is SEDEX. So this is a program where we ensure that we've got transparency and the right standards in our supply chain as well as our production facilities. So we look at the standards with how we treat the workforce with our production facilities and our policies within those each of those respective facilities. We also look at the suppliers that we deal with to make sure again that they are following set guidelines all the way back to the initiation point of that supply chain. So again, it's to ensure that we've got transparency, but then again we've got those high standards that we're setting throughout the communities that we're operating in, but also the vendors that we're doing business with. So looking further on the sustainability front, a couple of things that we've done here recently, we've actually joined the Alliance to End Plastic Waste, which is a big thing that obviously impacts our industry. Being surface protection films and film being a major component of our products today, we want to take a proactive stance to be able to figure out how we address and make the industry more sustainable and reducing plastic waste that's impacting the environment today. So we've got strong representation. Our CEO, Richard Marchant, is part of that alliance and is on the leadership team to ensure that Novacel and our company is taking a proactive stance to better our position and ensure sustainability within our product lines. One thing that we have done, and Dave touched on it earlier, when we look at innovation, we are strongly factoring sustainability into all the products that we're developing. So it's not an afterthought, it's an initial thought when we look to develop products that we are making sure that they, how can we make sure they're eco-friendly? How can we make sure that they are good for the environment as we look to develop them with the different adhesive systems or substrates that we look to utilize? The other piece is our environmental footprint. So we have, as Dave mentioned, several manufacturing facilities, several service centers around the world, a large global network. We look at making sure that we're reducing our carbon footprint, looking at our utilities, looking at our water usage, and setting targets for us to reduce that over the next several years, so that we can better steward of our environment in the way that we actually do our manufacturing processes and distribution processes. We have strong goals from that standpoint. So diving into the Troy site. So again, as Dave mentioned, we have a large facility here in Troy and serves as kind of the regional headquarters for the Americas. Within this facility, we are a manufacturer, so we are coating rolled goods. And we operate really two businesses within here, Novacel on the surface protection side and Novacel Performance Coatings. The complex has been here since 1914, so it's 107 years this year. So we've got a strong history in Troy. The complex in itself is 3 buildings and comprises about 330,000 square feet. We have 75 full-time employees that are based here, and we have been growing over the last several years as we look to take on more business and expand. We do have a unionized workforce here in Troy. And you look at some of our capabilities. Again, our main manufacturing is based on coatings. So we have the ability to mix our own coatings, both water-based and solvent-based here on site. So we have all the the required environmental permits and legal requirements to be able to do solvents here, which is a unique capability for us. We have the ability to do flexographic printing. So if customers want branded products, so if they have protective film that they want to put their brand on or their product, we have the ability to print and brand on site. And then we also have converting capabilities to be able to slit, rewind to custom lengths and widths, as well as for our Novacel Performance Coatings business, we have the ability to slit sheet or sheeted product that is required for our customers in that part of the business. So looking at the Novacel piece, that is, again, what Dave mentioned earlier is the larger portion of our business, and it's very diversified. We service a lot of different industries with a lot of different products. And part of that's been very strategically important to us, especially as we've been in the midst of COVID. Being diversified has been an excellent way for us to kind of weather the storm of COVID economically. We've seen sectors like the aerospace market that has taken a steep decline because of COVID, but other areas like the plastics that has just accelerated. So being diversified has continued to be an important strategy to us and will continue to be in the future as we go forward. We look about the Novacel Performance Coatings business. It really is a specialty coating business that's geared towards release coatings and adhesive coatings for performance applications and different customer end use markets. A couple of highlights that we end up that we're focusing on within that business. First is apparel transfer. So we make release papers and films that printers use to make heat transfer labels for apparel decoration. So we have a release coating on our papers and films. They're able to then take that down different ink systems, whether digitally or screen print, apply adhesives. At that point, there's a heat transfer label that's been made. That's sold to decorators that then do different t-shirt brands. It could be stadiums where they're, soccer stadiums where they're doing soccer jerseys and customizing. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry on the decoration side. So we're a top supplier into that market for release papers and films. We also supply release papers for the casting industry. So customers are taking our papers, they're putting down liquid organosols or plastisols, going through the curing process to turn that into a vinyl film. And that's used for a variety of decoration. It could be car wraps to actually wrap cars for different effects or branding. It could be decals for windows, for floor graphics, for a variety of different graphic applications. We also have release papers for the high pressure laminate industry. So high pressure laminate countertops. If we look at different construction opportunities, our papers are provided in the laminate process to actually protect the laminate, but also and to give it the custom gloss level. So you can see in that bottom right, we offer a high gloss all the way down to a matte, and it gives it a nice gloss finish depending on the end use application. And then we also do a variety of adhesive applications for cohesive, which is an adhesive that only sticks to itself for packaging applications, as well as labeling, water activated adhesives for labeling applications and so on. So we have a very diversified set. Within that business, we partner strongly with customers to custom develop solutions. So if there's an end use case that a customer has, they'll come to us, we'll formulate the substrate, we'll formulate the adhesive release system, and we'll partner together to scale that up, test it, and commercialize it with them as a partner. If we look at, I guess, a recent joint venture and talk about that, a recent investment that we did here in Troy. So Dave alluded to, we created our 5th division last year called Chargeurs Healthcare Solutions, and that was in early 2020. And it was really a charge for us to pivot within our businesses and say, look, we have all this manufacturing expertise, all this business expertise, a robust supply chain. How can we help combat what's going on with COVID? So our CEO basically launched the investment across the group for us to enter into this space. And we ended up doing a variety of different things where we make masks. So we're focusing on PPE. We make medical masks today, medical gowns, hand sanitizers. As Dave mentioned, we have antimicrobial technology within some of our films and also solutions, spray solutions. So really took the engineering and the expertise within the group and created this new division. Specifically for Troy to help support the PPE part of that business and mass manufacturing, we installed and renovated part of our facility to actually host and to set up a manufacturing operation to make 3-ply medical masks and N95 masks. It's a joint venture. The US version is a joint venture between Chargeurs PCC, Fashion Technologies, the interline division that Dave mentioned, as well as our CPF division. And we're focused again on FDA approved 3-ply medical mask and NIOSH approved N95 masks. So we started this business in August. It got up and running manufacturing wise. We also have 2 facilities in France that are doing mass manufacturing, a facility in the UK and Switzerland. So it is a global footprint. But for entering the US market, we focused in on the facility in Troy and have set up that business since August. And I want to highlight and talk about some of the key incentives that we either participate in or were educated on through that process. Because I think it's very important for companies that are considering investing in Ohio to understand how much support and really solid programs are out there for investments and for spurring and incentivizing economic growth. We've got both programs, incentive programs at a local level within Troy that we took advantage of, but also at a state level with things like Jobs Ohio. And there's programs and partners out there that are all geared towards really fueling that economic growth through grants to help offset capital investment, tax incentives, whether at a payroll level or at a sales tax level, and then also funding to further develop the workforce to make sure we upskill and we have the right workforce to help support the investment and be competitive long term. I've kind of listed on a couple of different partners that we'd work through, and I'll take a moment to kind of talk through and highlight each one. So Jobs Ohio was a program early on that we got in contact with to understand the project that we're going into. This is a multi-million-dollar investment. We were coming to create several jobs within our facility. And so we partnered with Jobs Ohio to go through their process of applying for capital grants to help offset some of the capital that we were infusing for the renovation as well as the equipment. And the process honestly was very streamlined. It probably only took couple hours to really get the applications filled out, to work with the team. Justin Farmer, who was our contact, excellent resource for us to get through the process. And ultimately, we had the benefit of receiving a very sizable grant for us to offset our capital investment and help even better improve the return on investment for us to go forward. The other programs that are out there is Ohio Tech Cred, and that's specifically focused in on workforce development. So the state will provide money to help upskill the workforce. So let's take an example, if I have a maintenance team that I want to, let's say, involve them in a higher skill, whether it's PLC or project logic control development, I can actually send them to school and have part of that a grant to help offset those costs to upskill and to further develop their work skills for that. So it's a great program that's used towards upskilling the workforce and making the workforce more competitive for the company and for the community. Within Troy, Ohio, we were able to be supported by them through their employee creation incentive program, which is a new program they rolled out about a year ago. And it's a program that's derived to help support business and economic activity within Troy. And the incentive there is that if you're creating jobs and you meet certain capital thresholds, that you're able to get a reduction on your payroll tax against the city. So again, another good program and tax incentive to spur investment. Fast Lane is a part of the Manufacturing Extension Partnership Program or MEP. Every state has an MEP set up within, and actually a lot of states have several. So Fast Lane is the MEP for the Dayton area. Columbus has one, Cincinnati and Cleveland each have their MEP, and they're all called different names, but Fast Lane is the one for Dayton. And they were a critical partner, and their mission is really to partner within the business and the community within their area that they are responsible for to accelerate growth. And they really specialize on manufacturing. They have a team of industry experts that come in, work with you on your project, kind of understand where your gaps and challenges are, and help provide solutions, whether that's direct support with their team or their extensive network of manufacturers, connecting with suppliers or potential contractors that could help you tackle the challenges that you're presented with your current investment or growth project. They also have the ability to provide grants as well, depending on, they're typically non-capital grants, but depending on the project and scope, they have the ability to fund part of the investments as well. And then lastly is the Greater Dayton Ford Trade Zone. This is it's FTZ, so it has the ability, and then again, if it makes sense for your business and your supply chain, if you're importing goods, you have the ability to be a part of that and sign up for that program where there's a variety of different advantages. There's deferred duties, there's potentially reduced duties, or even if you're lucky, elimination of duties on imports. And they actually have a very nice online savings calculator that you can go on to put in, I guess, your criteria around what you're looking to do and actually see if it makes sense for your business to take advantage of that option. So again, those are a select few of all the options that are available. There's still a whole lot more beyond that. And my biggest advice to those that are considering is really, make sure you're partnering in locally with those that are in the area, that are within the state. So Ohio does a very good job of providing the programs really needed by employers to continue to invest, continue to grow, and to really develop the workforce to support the businesses long term. So with that said, I think that's the end of our presentation. So I think we can turn over to questions.
Great. Yeah, if you want to stop sharing the screen and we go on conversation mode. Thank you so much, both of you, David and GR. First, I've been taking notes nonstop during your presentation. First of all, very impressed about your capability as a group, and I have been myself in manufacturing as well, and I know some of the challenges, and I applaud your effort on really looking towards environment efforts. And I think, David, you mentioned that the maturity of the appetite for environmentally friendly product is a bit different from Europe, but in the United States. But as a group, you're moving forward, and GR, you describe all the initiative you're doing in terms of being compliant. And that make me think that's one of the questions, because I think like environment is now part of all the compliance is part of the supply chain effort that you're doing. Based on the couple of days of event we had and some of the feedback from our network, supply chain, if I may ask you, supply chain has been difficult, the past year, especially with COVID. It's always been an area of challenges and optimization, but with COVID, it did bring a different set of challenges. Can you share with us maybe a few, just to so the audience feel that they're not alone?
So it's evident. I think if you look at me, I've been around for a while, and I will tell you, the challenges that we have encountered throughout the pandemic have been unlike anything that I've ever seen before. I just had a conversation with one of my colleagues yesterday, and what seems to be occurring in 2021 right now is that the pressure and the stress and all of the challenges related to keeping manufacturing underway through the pandemic have kind of hit a saturation point. This year, there is no exception to the issues that we have had related to shortages or delays on raw materials. We have had some really incredible challenges related to transportation. At one point in time, we import a fair amount of our product from our facilities in Europe. At one point in time in March, we had 60 containers of product that were stuck in the harbor around New York, just due to the glut of stuff that was coming in from overseas, and the issues that they had staffing the docks to unload it. The supply chains, the lead times for every component that we use in our operations, whether it's the actual raw materials we use in our products, pallets, packaging, everything has been quite a bit of a challenge, and freight as well. I've not ever seen anything like it.
It seems
it's
to
crazy.
be, yeah. And GR, you mentioned the ability of the FT, the zone, foreign trade zone, and I think what there was highlighted yesterday was that actually the state of Ohio is one of the states that has the most of them, and they really encourage, and I hear from you also an encouragement to use them, but the product's got to get there. So yeah. But it seems to be highly beneficial also to use that type of mechanism. Thank you for sharing. Anything else you would like to add, GR, in terms of supply chain? And I'm looking at my next question.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess to tackle on Dave, I think this is definitely the year. And again, when we talk with industry, within our industry, and also other industries, I don't think we haven't encountered anyone that's not facing pressure right now. I mean, this is going to be revolutionary. The fact that customer suppliers, they're going to really have to, if they're smart, they're going to be analyzing, how do I proactively protect my supply chain going forward, right? We're doing that same assessment internally, right? To make sure that we're learning from all the challenges today. But I think commercially, we're also understanding that if customers are single sourced, that may not be the strategy they're going to take in the future. So we also have to adapt our commercial strategy to make sure our value proposition is still strong enough to where we don't lose share on those cases where we're single sourced. Consequently, as well on our end, that we make sure that where we do have critical single source opportunities with our supply chain, that we diversify in the future too. So it's going to be the year of reflection, but also a lot of work coming out of it once it stabilizes to make sure that we are more robust going forward.
Yeah, implementation for sure. Thank you. You mentioned also during your presentation about Ohio, specifically for the site of Troy, Ohio being the site, and then you distribute from there, I guess, all across the United States. How is that distribution working out for you, being based in Ohio? What benefit and also maybe some of a heads up you may share with the audience?
Yeah, I think Ohio is an excellent logistic hub. I mean, if you look at where it's located, obviously in the Midwest, the infrastructure is great. We've got a good interstate system. From a freight standpoint, as Dave mentioned, freight has been a challenge, both import, but also even domestic, just with trucking lines. Though we've seen, I would say inconsistency in service on freight, or even say price increase in the freight industry, Ohio and I would say the regional area has seen the least compared to other parts, right? It's the Northeast or now. It seems like we've got more capacity, more reliability, more carrier selection, and more traffic coming through here. That's kind of helped make that a better case than what it would be in other parts of the country. But in terms of distribution, whether it's air, it's rail, ocean, or barge. I mean, we've got every mode you can think of coming through here that we can take advantage of and distribute. So, strategically within our business, we use third-party warehouses throughout the country. And so we can bring product into Troy, we can distribute from there, we can direct ship out of those third-party warehouses. So we have a nice logistical network, but Troy in Ohio is an epicenter for that network.
Thank you. Yeah, since you got a very flexible network here going on, and that's awesome.
I have a question.
We have a question.
Hello. Yeah, this is Alexandrine from French American Chamber of Commerce.
Yes.
Thank you very much for your speech. It was really nice to understand how you work there. And I was wondering, looking at what you were saying about the big issues you've been facing last year, I was wondering if you're still facing issues in the logistics side due to transport shortage. I don't know if from Europe or if you bring products from other areas of the world, but it seems like the cost of transports have increased very a lot. And are you facing issues about that?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Mm.
Go ahead, Dave.
Yeah, so I would say that it was worse in February and March, I think, is where things really were the most severe. Globally, there has been a shortage of container availability. So we've had to put a lot more emphasis and energy into the planning part of it. So when we've manufactured the product and we're getting ready to transport it, we have to be working 2 or 3 weeks in front of ourselves to make sure that we're going to be able to get the containers organized. We have found, I'm going to use the term shortages of over-the-road transportation throughout the United States, and into Mexico, I might add. It has, the areas that seem to be the most vulnerable are the areas that are, less concentrated. JR mentioned how robust the system is in Ohio, because it is a hub, and we are kind of in the heart of the manufacturing belt, if you will. But if you start talking about trying to send stuff down to, say, Florida or into Washington State, we've seen more issues with that, because the truckers don't want to get their trucks out there and not have a load to bring back. So the whole thing has been a lot more dynamic in 2021 than it has been in the past. But the fact of the matter is, there has been a growing difficulty with over-the-road trucking now for, I'm going to say, 2 to 3 years. And as I understand it, it's related to older truck drivers are beginning to retire, and it's not been quite as of an attractive vocation for younger people.
Okay, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Thank you. Another point you mentioned, and you thankful that you describe all the support you got from Jobs Ohio and the different local support you encounter. One that struck me that I don't think we covered during those 2 days was the ability to get support on the workforce. If you can expand on that, because as many manufacturer, it's also a challenge to find the right people to retain that workforce, to train that workforce. So can you expand a little bit on terms of maybe your initiative in terms of attraction and this training part of attracting and retaining your workforce?
Yes, no, it's a great question, Cedric. And I would say next to the supply chain issues, that's our next biggest challenge, staff. And again, it's industry wide. And when I talk with other leaders of business in the area, we all have the same challenges when it comes to staffing. It's an extremely competitive market. The pool right now is very slim compared to what it used to be, and there's some drivers of that. Within the Troy and the Miami County area, there's a lot of manufacturing coming in. So a lot of those programs I talked about before, and a lot of the other just attractive parts of operating and setting up business within the county has been new competition. So some of the things that we're going through, we're having to constantly look at our wages, our compensation packages for employees, and also our benefits, making sure that beyond just a direct wage, that our medical, all of our other benefits are competitive. So we look at that and make sure that we've got a strong package to attract and to retain. But we also are looking at how we can provide career growth, right? So beyond just getting them in the door, how do we really show that they can have a career here long-term, right? And show that path, even down to the production worker, right? That they're just not going to come and work a machine forever, that they can actually progress. So we've done a lot of work with that around, once we get them in, how do we retain them and actually build a career within our companies and our facilities. I would say, one of the big things that when it comes down to like the tech cred programs, there are state incentives where if we look at, if I've got a need, let's say my current workforce doesn't have a certain skill set, technical skill set, I can identify what that is, identify the program that I would like for them to participate in, apply for that grant, and say, look, I'm going to send 10 of my team members to this program. This, over 6 months, they're going to get this education and this training, and the state will approve and fund a portion of that. In some cases, depending on it could cover all of it, or it could cover a portion. But it's their investment to making sure that the workforce is growing and getting competitive along the way in the industries that they operate from that. And typically what they expect as a return is that the wages increase for those roles. And since they've gotten a higher skill, that they also you're compensating them at a higher level. So there is requirements there to make sure that that the wages are factoring into the skills that they now have within the workforce. So overall, it's a very, I know a lot of other colleagues in the area that have taken advantage of that program. So, and typically I think it runs on a quarterly basis that they're looking to have new programs and new grants.
Very, very interesting. Thank you, Gio. And then we're getting close to our time here. I may wrap up with the last question, except if we got a new question coming in. But one of the, being a French group, what's would you say? I mean, it was a merger and acquisition, and some portion of it. I will now gear the conversation towards the cultural differences between France and the United States. How do you, I would say, maybe communicate or integrate, if any, the French culture within your location in Troy or in Ohio and North America, or you keep it very separated? How do you manage that cultural difference from the group?
So I think the place to start, I don't want to take too much time with it, but the core business, yeah, very, very large. Chargeurs Protective Films had an interest in entering into the US market, and they debated whether they were going to start, I'm going to call it a greenfield operation in 2000, or whether it would be more advantageous to acquire a company that already had a position. So when the ultimate decision was that they acquired the companies that JR and I are part of from a company called IVEX that was already based in the United States. I did not join until 2006. So for the first several years, I wasn't here, but I am aware of some of the activities that took place during that initial transition time. And I think if we look at it in retrospect, I think originally there may have been an idea that they were going to be able to take the same business strategies, the same approach to market that they had employed in Europe and just drop them into the United States. And over the course of time, to the company's credit, they began to recognize that there are cultural differences, to your point. And originally there was a pretty big group of French French colleagues that came over in support of the acquisition. So between 2000 to 2005, but the company ultimately recognized that there was, some value of, having more local people in the leadership positions. And I would say from probably 2005 forward, the leadership of the U.S. operations have been, U.S. people. Okay, we are not operating what I would consider to be 100% autonomously. We are engaged with discussions. Before the pandemic, I would make trips to France 5 to 6 times a year. They would come over and visit us regularly. So there is a constant exchange of ideas and information, and there's a high level of receptivity to recognizing, we're going to need to do things maybe just a little bit differently here in the US than maybe done in Europe. I think a very good case in point is the discussion we had a few minutes ago about the third-party warehouses. The geography here in the United States is so expansive, and the expectation in the US market is, as close to just in time as you can get. So if you think about our locations are predominantly towards the eastern side of the country, we've got a lot of business in areas like Texas and California and Washington, right? You're not going to be able to meet the delivery expectations if you say we're only going to service out of our primary facilities. That's a little bit different than it is in Europe. And we still have discussions around that with a fair degree of regularity, but there's an acceptance that is a key component of the value proposition that we bring to the equation. And we have third-party warehouses in the Bay Area of California, Texas, up north towards Washington, and then several others around the southeast or whatever. So I guess I'm trying to give that as an example, but there's certainly others as well.
I think it makes sense. I appreciate again that you're sharing that experience and that example. And it's true that and I'm very pleased to hear, because it takes some time, and it takes the willingness to exchange, not only to exchange, but to accept differences. And I'm not shocked because of your dimension that it's happening, but I think it's good to communicate to our audience that as they are new to enter a market, yes, they're gonna come in, and there's gonna be a lot of exchange, but ultimately, it's gonna end up taking up its own shape and form of solution for the customer here locally. So thank you for sharing that. Yeah, it's a broad topic, and I'll be happy to have more with you offline.
Sure.
and with some of our members. I'm gonna thank you. I'm gonna pause the recording. We had time, and we have our next guest speaker, Caroline, that is here. Just gonna stop the recording. Here we go.